When a pope dies, white smoke is expected. But one May morning, in the heart of the ancient Vatican, it was not a man, but a dog who broke the sacred silence. He carried a sealed secret, given by the dying pope, a secret that could change the fate of the church. Not everyone saw the miracle. But on that day, 3 people, a nun, a seminarian, and an atheist journalist, were led down a path from which there was no turning back. It began with the soft sound of footsteps on the cold stone corridor, and ended with a bark echoing through the Sistine Chapel, just before the historic hour of decision. St. Peter's Square at dawn, empty chairs, the long ringing of the bells from the Vatican bell tower. A thin mist covers the dome of the basilica. When a pope dies, the world falls silent. But in the heart of the Vatican, where time is measured by the breath of faith, every minute can carry the mark of eternity. In the late pope's private room, a candle burns. A white sheet covers the bed. On the stone floor, Francisco the dog lies curled up under the small altar. Francisco, not the saint, but the dog of the same name, has been a silent shadow beside Pope Francis during his nights of prayer. No one really cares about him, but there are those little souls whom God chooses, only when the time comes. Francisco wakes up. A gentle breeze blows through the half-open window. The first rays of sunlight fall on his neck, a golden light that catches the metal ring of his collar. At that moment, something woke up. Francisco raises his head, his eyes no longer animals, but as if listening to something from within the void. The faint choir begins to play. Scene change. Funeral of Pope Francis. The red-robed cardinals enter the basilica. The prayers are chanted in Latin. Their faces are tense, mixed with grief. He once said to me, "Keep an eye on it." At the time, I thought it was just a last-ditch, weak remark. But now I'm not so sure. Vatican corridor, quiet, but filled with metaphysical atmosphere. An old priest quietly closes the door leading to the conclave. In his private room, Francisco gets up. He walks toward the door, standing there for a long time. Suddenly, no one opens it, but the door opens gently, as if someone outside is calling. Francisco walks out, without turning back. His feet pass through the stone-paved corridors, where the early morning light makes a long streak like a heavenly sign. No one stands in his way. He did not run away. He was called, and those who have the eyes of the Spirit will realize that God sometimes sends his messengers in the most unexpected form. Francisco stops in front of an iron door leading to the forbidden area. He looks up, as if waiting, and then continues into the most sacred area of the Vatican, where the conclave of cardinals is taking place. Francisco's light footsteps echoed on the cold marble floor. The hallway was dark, but the light from the ancient stained glass windows still filtered in like streaks of divine light. There are paths not meant for men, and there are footsteps, seemingly random, but guided by an invisible hand. 2 Swiss guards spot Francisco on the surveillance camera. A small alarm sounds in the Vatican security system. The chase scene unfolds, quiet but tense as a string. Guard 1 whispering, "Is it the Pope's dog?" Guard 2 surprised, "How did it get in here?" Francisco rushes through forbidden passages, not panicking, as if he knows exactly where he is going. The guard's armor reflects the light of the basilica. He does not run. He leads. In a world where everything is tightly controlled, a small creature is shaking the ancient order with the simplicity of his loyalty. Inside a small, abandoned chapel in the eastern corner of the Vatican, Sister Sarah is kneeling in prayer. The scene is quiet, the flickering candlelight illuminating the cracked frescoes. Sister Sarah, praying softly, "Lord, use me if I am of any use to your plans." A soft scratching at the door. Sarah opens her eyes. Francisco is standing in front of the chapel, his eyes deep and filled with something unspeakable. No barking, no whining. Sarah whispering, "I am his." She walks over and sits down beside him. Francisco approaches, bowing his head. Sarah notices an old metal object attached to a collar. Sound of running shoes. Thomas, a young American seminarian, appears, backpack on, running with an animal behavior recorder in his hand. Panting, "Thomas, I saw it from the vestry." "Oh, Sarah, why did it come to you?" Sarah, it didn't just come to me. It was sent to you. Gianna, an Italian reporter, appears in the doorway, sharp face, hair in a bun, camera and notebook in hand. She enters, breaking the sacred atmosphere. Gianna, half mocking, half serious. A dog carrying a secret message. A priest with a prophetic gaze. And an atheist journalist. I guess how he entered an unwritten chapter of the Bible. Sarah didn't answer. She stared at the necklace. This isn't just metal. Francisco suddenly raised his head, his eyes directed toward an old door leading to the Vatican archives, as if inviting them. 3 men, 1 dog, and a secret sealed in faith. The journey had begun, but they didn't know what they were about to discover would not only change the outcome of an election, but shape the soul of an era. Francisco's footsteps disappeared into the darkness. The stone door closed behind the 3, an old wooden door ajar. The space inside is covered with thick dust. The bookshelves are high. The light filtering through the stained glass windows casts a misty luminosity. Every stone of the Vatican is engraved with a secret, but sometimes it is the rooms that no one goes to that hold the whispers of history. Francisco walks ahead, stopping in the middle of the room. The group of 3 stands still. Time seems to stop. The ticking of the broken wall clock, still echoing in their heads. Asterisk, the 3 characters separate. The camera zooms in on each person in turn. Sarah looks up at the statue of St. Francis hanging crookedly on the wall, remembering the last time she spoke to the Pope. Thomas sits down on the wooden chair, takes a small Bible from his pocket, his hands shaking, as if praying for his own doubts. Gianna stands in front of the window, the light shining on her cold face, her eyes full of hurt. She looked at Francisco and said softly, Gianna whispering, I used to think faith was medicine for the weak, but today why do I feel so small? Francisco turned his head, looking at her as if he understood. The light changed angle, creating a soft halo around the necklace. Sarah removed the necklace for the first time. The camera zoomed in. The dull gold metal. Underneath was a circular USB-like electronic device with a dove-shaped watermark. Thomas whispering, This is not in any Vatican device file, or hidden from human eyes. Sarah plugged the device into her phone. The screen read, File found. Password required. Gianna stepped back, her eyes half believing, half sarcastic. Gianna, a pope hiding a secret message in a dog collar? He seems to understand how to hide the sacred from those in the cloak of power. They try several passwords. The saint's name, the date of his coronation, the prayer, but all give errors. Sarah, tired, mentions the saint's name, St. Francis of Assisi. Francisco raises his head, barks a single word, then falls silent as if confirming something. Sarah, shocked. Francis, not a name. It's a reminder. Thomas bursts out. Assisi, St. Francis of Assisi, protector of all. Gianna types Assisi. The screen lights up. A file opens. The light in the room seems to change. The atmosphere becomes heavier. Ancient Latin hymns play softly in the background. A digitized handwritten letter appears. The Pope's voice plays slowly, movingly, like a final farewell from eternity. If anyone reads these lines, God has intervened at the right moment. I have discovered betrayal from those I once called brothers. Robert Prevost is not the successor to the soul. He is the successor to power. But the legacy of the faith cannot be mistaken. Gianna, Thomas, and Sarah are silent. Francisco lies still, but his eyes are still wide open, guarding the screen like a holy lamp. Francisco suddenly jumps up, his eyes shining as if reflecting something invisible. He turns to look at the 3 people and then rushes away through the narrow corridor filled with statues of saints. He knows the way, and the heart of the Vatican knows it is coming. The camera cuts to Cardinal Bianca is standing on the balcony of the upper floor of the Vatican, hearing that 3 intruders and an animal are approaching the Sistine Chapel. His eyes darken, but instead of getting angry, he remains silent. Flashback, Pope Francis's voice. Angelo, if one day your heart wavers between law and truth, follow. Francisco, He is more than a dog. He is my last echo. Cardinal Bianca turns and walks quickly down the old stone staircase. From this moment on, the head of Vatican security no longer acts for order but for truth. Asterisk, the great wooden doors swing open. Francisco bursts into the Sistine Chapel as the cardinals are busy voting. The sacredness is torn apart in an instant. Everyone turns. Several cardinals stand up in panic. Francisco stops right in the middle of the room, beneath Michelangelo's Last Judgment. Sarah, Thomas, Gianna, and Cardinal Bianca follow. Their hearts beat steadily, and the light of the sky falls on the marble floor through the glass dome. Cardinal Angelo Bianca, loudly, "Your Eminence, forgive me for this incongruity, but what I am about to present is a truth that comes from the soul of the deceased, and from God himself." Asterisk, Gianna presents a device. Sarah opens a letter. They present it to the conclave. The atmosphere is tense and divided. Some cardinals are angry, saying that this is a ridiculous disruption of the conclave. Others are silent, looking at the document with bewildered eyes. The old Brazilian cardinal slowly stands up. God once used a donkey to stop the prophet. Today, he uses a dog to stop history from going astray. Silence. The entire room falls silent. Eyes begin to change, not because of the evidence, but because of the truth that is present in the soul. Asterisk, Robert Prevost, the leading candidate, sits silently. No objections, no justifications. A drop of sweat runs down his forehead. A statue of Jesus above, the light shines directly on his face like a silent judgment. The truth of faith does not need to be shouted. It only needs a gesture, a look, a soul pure enough to hear the voice of God. Asterisk, a young cardinal asked to speak. Request to stop the voting and reread the entire content from the device. Approved. Image of the cardinals quietly walking out of the voting booth, removing their mitres, leaving their red robes on the chairs as a ritual of humility. We are only human, but sometimes it is in weakness that God writes the strongest plans. Francisco still sat there like a mascot of divine intervention, his eyes looking up at the dome. The light fell on his body as clear as a sign. White smoke rises from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel. The crowd holds its breath, then bursts into applause and chants. This time, it is not just a pope who has been elected. It is a courageous soul who has conquered power, with the truth that comes from the divine light. The new pope, Marco Venturi, appears. His face is simple, his eyes humble. He raises his hands in blessing, speaking directly. I take the name Leo XIV, in honor of a former pope who opened the doors of the church to the poor, and a recent pope who dared to love a dog as a messenger of God. Gianna sits at her desk. The typewriter slowly types. The Pope's dog, a story for children. On the wall hung a picture of Francisco with a halo, quietly beside a picture of Pope Francis. Not all truths need to be published. Some are written to nourish young souls and preserve the original holiness. Asterisk, Cardinal Bianca answered a television interview after his appointment as Secretary of State. The reporter asked about the rumor that the dog interrupted the conclave. He just smiled, looking toward the bell tower of the cathedral. Bianca, there are things that do not need to be protected by stone walls. They are guarded by loyalty. Asterisk, late at night. Pope Francis's private room. The candle was still burning. Francisco returned, entered the old room. Slowly, he lay down right where he had always been, in front of the window overlooking the Vatican dome. Looking at Francisco silently, his head slightly raised, as if looking at the moonlight. The sky was full of scattered stars. The wind blew gently through the curtains. It doesn't need praise. It doesn't need a reward. It just needs a place to continue guarding what he left behind. Francisco's face, the light reflected in his eyes forming the shape of a cross. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. And one day in the Vatican, amid power and ritual, a small being saw him and guided the whole church back to the light, based on the truth which only loyalty can maintain.